Okay, so today we're talking about standard form of a linear equation. First, I'm going to do a quick little recap of what you should already know for this unit. So we found slope multiple different ways from the slope-intercept equation, y equals mx plus b, from a table of values, from 2 points on the line where you use m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You can find slope from the graph, and you can calculate the rise over run, or you could be given the rise over run, which are also the changes in y values and x values, or the first differences. You should also know how to rearrange equations from standard form to slope-intercept form. So today we're actually going to do the reverse of that. You know how to plot points or ordered pairs on a coordinate plane or a graph. You should know the names of the 4 quadrants, the numbers. You need to know how to fill in a table of values and determine first differences for x and y. You know how to determine if a set of points is linear or nonlinear, and if they are linear, if it's also a function. You can describe the direction and steepness of lines, so talk about the slope, whether it's positive, negative, how steep it is in relation to another line. Determine and use the x and y intercepts of a line, so you can figure out what the x and y intercepts are when you're given an equation, and then you can use that to graph. And you can also determine if a given point is on a specific line. So if it satisfies the equation and left side is equal to the right side, then that means it is on that line. And if you can also find the equation of a line in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, if you're given the standard form of the equation, ax plus by plus c equals 0, right here. You can also find the equation if you're given the slope and intercept, if you're given a graph, if you're given the slope and a point on the line, this is from yesterday, and 2 points on the line. So that's also from yesterday. So you should know how to do all of these things. If you don't remember how to do those, you should go back and refresh yourself on those. Today, you're going to find the standard form of an equation given either the slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, or given 2 points on that line, which basically ties back into the first one. So, just a quick refresh. Standard form of an equation, ax plus by plus c equals 0. This is the standard form of a linear equation. Keep in mind that a, b, and c are all integers, which means they can't be fractions, they can't be decimals. A and b can't both be 0, because then you would just have c is equal to 0, which is not a straight line, that's just nothing. And a can't be a negative number, so it has to be a positive integer. So it could be anything 0 or above. It just can't be negative. If it is negative, you have to multiply everything by -1 every single term so that you end up with a positive a value. Okay, so how to convert to standard form. So again, this is the standard form of an equation. A, b, and c are numbers. They have to be greater than 0. If any of them are fractions, you clear those first by multiplying by the denominator. If you have more than one fraction, you multiply by the least common denominator so that your fractions are gone and you have numbers in front of all the terms, not fractions. If you have decimals, so say you had something like 2.1, you would multiply that by 10 to get rid of that decimal, because then you have 21. So if, say, a was 2.1x plus something y plus c equals 0, you would multiply all the terms by 10 to get rid of that decimal. If it was something like 1.23, where you have 2 numbers after the decimal, you would multiply by 100 so that the decimal goes away, and you end up with a bigger number, 123. So just look at how many decimal places you have. If there's something with 1 decimal, multiply by 10. If there's something with 2 decimal places, multiply by 100, and so on. Then third step, you move all the terms to the left side so that you have everything on the left side and the right side is equal to 0. And if a ends up as a negative number at this point, if it's negative, less than 0, you multiply all the terms by -1, which basically ends up being you flipping the signs of everything so that it's a positive number. So let's go over a few examples. We're going to convert each of these to standard form, and we're also going to state the values of a, b, and c for each equation once we have it in standard form. So first equation here, we have y equals 4x minus 3. So step 1 told us to clear the fractions. Well, there aren't any, so that's done. No decimals as well, so step 2. Step 3, we're going to move everything to the left side. So we're going to subtract 4x from both sides, and we're going to add 3 to both sides, so that what we end up with here is y minus 4x plus, that should be x, plus 3 equals 0. Because I've added 3 to both sides, so it's gone over on the right side, and I've subtracted 4x from both sides, so it's gone on the right side. Everything on the right side is 0. I'm going to rearrange so that I have it in the right order. Negative 4x plus y plus 3 equals 0. So now we have a negative a value right here. So we're going to multiply everything, all the terms, by negative 1. So I end up with 4x minus y minus 3 equals 0. So negative 1 times negative 4 is 4. A positive 1 here in front of the y times negative 1 is negative 1. 3 times, whoops, this should be a negative. Why is it not erasing? There we go. Sorry, this should be minus 3 equals 0. This is why we check our work, to make sure we don't mess up like that. So yeah, 3 times negative 1 is negative 3, and 0 times negative 1 is still just 0. So now we have this in ax plus by plus c equals 0. So I'm going to state my values. A is the one in front of the x, which is 4. B is negative 1, and c is negative 3. Okay, also keep in mind when you're talking about y equals mx plus b form versus ax plus by plus c equals 0, these b's are not the same thing. In slope-intercept form, this is a lowercase b. In standard form, this is an uppercase b. They are not the same number at all. They might coincidentally end up the same, but they are not the same number. As you notice here, the b in this equation is negative 3. The uppercase b in this equation is negative 1. So that's not the same whatsoever. Alright, so let's look at the second equation. We have some decimals now. No fractions, so we can skip that step. Clear the decimals. So both of these numbers have one place after the decimal. So I'm going to multiply every single term in here by 10. So I'm going to end up with 10y is equal to negative 12x minus 47. So I've multiplied 10 times y, I've multiplied 10 times negative 1.2x, and I've multiplied 10 times negative 4.7. So all my decimals are gone now. I'm going to rearrange and put things on the other side. So I'm going to add 12x to both sides so that I have 12x over here. I still have my positive 10. Wow, the stylus is terrible today. 10y over here. And I'm going to add 47 to both sides. So I have plus 47. Once I've added those terms to the right side, I end up with 0. And you'll notice that I put the x value first so that I could do this all in one step instead of rearranging after. And now you'll notice I have a positive a value. So now I'm done. So a is 12, b is 10, and c is 47. Okay, so let's do the final example. Now we have some fractions. We have a fraction for our m, our slope, and we have a fraction for our lowercase b, which is our y-intercept. So the fraction here has a 3 on the bottom, this one has a 2 on the bottom, so I'm going to multiply everything by 6. Because 3 times 2 is 6, that's the least common denominator. So I'm going to multiply y by 6, so I'll get 6y is equal to, then I'll have 2/3 times 6 times x plus 1/2 times 6. Every term has been multiplied by 6. So I'll end up with 6y equals, then over here we'll have 2 times 6 is 12, divided by 3 is 4. So we have 4x, and this will be positive, plus 6 times 1 is 6, divided by 2 is 3. So now my fractions are gone. I can just rearrange. So I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. So I'll have negative 4x on this side, plus 6y, whoops, not equals yet. Then I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, so minus 3 will be equal to 0. Everything on the right side is gone, so it equals 0. Okay, have a negative a value here, so I'll multiply all the terms by negative 1. So I'll have 4x minus 6y plus 3 equals 0. It's a little squish down here, but that, excuse me, that's my standard form. 4x minus 6y plus 3 equals 0. So my A is 4, B is negative 6, and C is 3. So the last step here is if you're given 2 points, how do you find the standard form of the equation? Well, yesterday's work you were given 2 points, and you use those points to find the slope-intercept form of the equation, y equals mx plus b. So you basically do the same thing. You use the points. So let's say you had x1, comma, y1, and x2, comma, y2. These could be any numbers. You would use those to find the slope, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Find the slope, plug that into your y equals mx plus b equation. So this slope ends up in here. Pick one of these points, it doesn't matter which one, plug them in for the x and y values, solve for b, and then you'll have an equation with y equals some number for m, x, plus or minus some number here for b. Then use that, just like we did on the previous slide, and rearrange. So clear your fractions, clear your decimals, move everything to the left side so the right side equals 0, and make sure your a value is positive.